When you remove those substances or whatever your thing is, eating, shopping, whatever it is, you feel into your body that hell yes, I want this, or hell no, I need to put up a boundary. And you start really tuning into what serves you and what feeds your energy and what puts you in flow. And life starts happening for you and not at you anymore. Mm-hmm. And that is the true emotional freedom that we're all seeking.
Hey, I'm Brooke Jean, therapist, recovering perfectionist, and struggling working mom on a mission to normalize normal. If you're an overwhelmed, high-achieving, and secretly anxious mama, struggling to balance it all and on the brink of burnout, you are in the right place. Here is where we talk about hard things like balancing work and family life, mental health, and how to navigate life-altering transitions. Nothing is too taboo here. In my conversations, I'll teach you how to let go of who you think you're supposed to be in order to create the life you've always wanted. Get ready to embrace your messy, shed the shoulds, and find freedom through a life unperfected. This is the Unperfected Pod. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Unperfected Pod, where we normalize normal and find freedom through a life unperfected. I am so thrilled and honored and excited because today we have a fabulous guest on the podcast, the author of Intoxicating Lies, One Woman's Journey to Freedom from Gray Area Drinking, and just a trailblazer in the alcohol-free space, and someone that I'm already considering a friend because we have so many parallels in our life. Meg Geisewite, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh my gosh, Brooke, thank you so much for having me. It's my honor to be here with you.
You guys, we're going to have a juicy and honest conversation about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I'm going to be a little vulnerable on this podcast for the first time talking about this topic on the podcast. But we're going to talk about mommy wine culture. We're going to talk about living an alcohol-free life. We're going to talk about how the pressure to be the perfect fill in the freaking blank leads us down a road of behaviors that don't always serve our best interest. And that's at least what happened to both of us. So before we get into the juiciness factor, I want to formally invite you guys into Meg's world. So Meg Geisewite is an ordinary mom who found herself trapped in the mommy wine culture. She began her Sober Curious journey in November 2019, where she completed all 3 of the Sober Sis programs, the 21-day reset, alcohol-free lifestyle course, and the Quest, in which she currently participates. Flipping the script of silence in the mommy wine culture, Meg continues to give back to Sober Sis, a sober-minded sisterhood, and is dedicated to lifting up a community of women who find themselves trapped in gray area drinking. I love it. Is it still just so exciting to see your book in print and to know that it's making a difference in the world?
Yes, I mean, it really was an invitation that was laid upon my heart. And I, just like I say in my bio, was just an ordinary mom. I'd always had journals growing up and written. I used to write for our college newspaper. But then when I started really getting into drinking post-college, that creativity just left me and I stopped journaling. And it wasn't until I got sober curious in 2019 and started journaling again that I realized, wow, this is something that I love to do. And it had just kind of left my spirit when alcohol pretty much kind of started to take over, because we live in an alcohol obsessed society where binge drinking becomes almost normal in college. And then post-college, I got into sales and into the hustle culture, where you are as good as your last sales rankings. And, you have to earn your worth by, as proving it through my sales and winning awards. But it was this culture of work hard, play hard, which involved a lot of drinking. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met my husband. And then I fell into, with him, just really connecting in our marriage through glasses of wine after work, and then we ended up having 2 children, and I fell into the mommy wine culture where I was buying the tea towels and the napkins and the t-shirts that said behind every great mom is a bottle of wine. And then when I didn't feel like a great mom because I was kind of slightly hungover from my rewarding glass of wine the night before, and I didn't want to get in the ocean and play with them, or I wouldn't really want to go to the playground, I felt like a failure. I felt like a failure because I was not what the tea towel promised I would be. And I struggled in there for a long time because I watched other women just like myself who were winning awards at work or having a thriving marriage and kids who were doing well. And yet, behind the scenes, I was coming home and using wine as a self-care tool, as a way to kind of quiet the mind and escape the day and say, oh, this is my me time. I deserve this. I've earned this. And so the biggest lie in my book, I go over the 5 most intoxicating lies that we tell ourselves about alcohol, but it also is very much what you said. It's intertwined with our self-worth and the lies that we tell ourselves as women in particular, when we get messages from society that say we're too much, we're not enough, we're too thin, we're too fat, we're too sensitive, we're too aggressive. All these things make us disassociate with our inner knowing. And we start looking outside of ourselves for validation. And the alcohol is a way of saying it's okay to rest. It's like that societal permission slip. It's that mom club that says, oh, come on in. You're accepted here. We know parenting is hard, so come have a glass of wine with us. It's okay. You're accepted here. And so we gulp down these lies, and what we don't realize is that it's adding to our anxiety and our depression and actually keeping us further stuck. And I know for you and I, in this role of perfectionism and chronic achieving and people pleasing. So the book really kind of takes you through that whole journey and exploration of trying to rediscover who I was and what I needed for my life.
It's so beautiful. And I think the conversation around rest is so important because I identify with that, right? If you're that person who is high achieving, high performing, giving of yourself all day, trying to be successful in your career, but also trying to be stay-at-home mom status, showing up for all the things. And then at the end of the night, just completely burnt out, overstimulated, and you think this wine is going to be your reward or your rest. But then for me, at least over time, that one glass turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into a bottle.
Yep.
And before I knew it, during the day, you would see this successful leader managing, a $35 million business with the husband and the house and the car and the kids and the picket fence. And then at night, just taking a sledgehammer to my mental health with this over consuming of wine, I like to say brie cheese and Amazon Prime. And it really wasn't until the pandemic, which it's interesting because you started becoming alcohol free right before the pandemic. But the pandemic really exposed me to my own self-destruction. And I read in your book that, is it mothers or women increased their drinking by 40% in the pandemic? Was
Yes.
it mothers?
It was women in general. The drinking went up 41% because we were trying to juggle homeschooling our kids online. For some of us working online, I know I felt like I was in the kitchen 24/7 making meals, cleaning it, and then stuck inside all day with your people. And so you were stuck with those feelings and no way to really go out and distract. And, a lot of us, the only way to numb out was either getting more on our devices and or drinking. And we started normalizing day drinking. And we were told as a society, hey, is the pandemic stressful? And it really was for moms. Have a quarantini. With the quarantini, hey, go to a restaurant and you can get a margarita to go. You can't eat in there, but you can have a margarita to go. And so what were we telling people? Like, addiction went through the roof during the pandemic. And I know so many of my friends said their drinking just went off the charts during the pandemic. We also used it as a form of filling up our time when we were bored. And we were having happy hours online. And we really were faced with a lot of feelings that we hadn't felt in years. We were trapped inside, and now we had to face those feelings. And for many of us, we aren't taught how to face them. So we numbed with alcohol because it was one of the essential businesses along with the post office that was open. Not like grocery stores and alcohol stores were, and the post office were about it. And we know that that was for a reason, that there are some people, and the space that I'm talking about is gray area drinking. And I like to just kind of clarify this, because the reason why the liquor stores were kept open, there are people who are at end stage drinking, which means they would need a medical detox to quit drinking. And they may have seizures. And so the liquor stores actually stayed open for them, which is sad and heartbreaking. But the area where I existed on the alcohol use disorder spectrum, and it's been in the medical literature for over a decade, is called gray area drinking. So on one end, you have that end stage drinking, and then on the far end you have what we call take it or leave it drinkers. That is someone who may have a glass of champagne at a wedding to toast, and maybe one glass of wine, for their birthday, and they don't even finish the glass. They literally could take it or leave it.
And who are these people? I don't know a single one of them. I'm just going to throw that out there. Who are these anomalies? Because I don't know, at least the people that I roll with. My husband is a true take it or leave it. Most people are in the gray area. We just don't know it.
Yes, everybody else is in this really vast, big category on the alcohol use disorder spectrum. And your hue of gray can be different, right? It can be a lighter gray, or you could be really inching your way down towards that darker shade and towards end stage drinking, where you would need a medical detox. And if we don't start talking about this space, and that is why I wrote this book, because in 2019, when I found out about this term and that it was in the medical literature, and I'm in pharmaceutical sales, I was like, what is this? And how did I get here? And where am I going? If I don't get off this one-way drinking highway, where I know I'm headed towards a darker hue. And when I no longer wanted my kids to do sports in the evenings so that I could come home to my rewarding glass of wine, that scared me. But it's a very tricky, confusing space, because my family told me they didn't think I had a drinking problem. My friends said that I drank just like them. Like you said, everybody that you hang out with kind of drank like you did. In fact, I have a chapter in there in my book where I finally got the courage to tell my therapist, I think I have a drinking problem. And she said, and I explained all the back and forth in my head and how I felt stuck in this detox to retox loop. I never drank during the day, only after work, rushing kids through bedtime for my rewarding glass of wine, but then kind of having that slight hangover. And it was just this vicious detox to retox loop and a maddening Groundhog's Day. And she said, no, I don't think you have a drinking problem. I just think you're thinking about it too much. Well, her ill advice took my area of drinking going for 2 more years. And then I would go to like a spin class, and the instructor would say, oh, sweat out the toxins. I'm hungover too. It's okay. And so we normalize this gray area space with this. We confuse ourselves. We start to have divided hearts, divided minds, and we think something must be wrong with me. And this is where the shame comes in and the isolation. And I started blaming myself. I was like, I am the problem. I'm the only one who can't get this under control. What's wrong with me? And it brought a lot of shame, guilt, regret. And when I dove into this work and realized that it's a highly addictive drug, up there, right behind cocaine and heroin, okay, right behind it, I'm like, why am I blaming myself? I'm not the problem. It's the problem. It's a highly addictive drug that we are not warned about on the bottle. And, why am I using a depressant to celebrate? Why am I having a toxin with my kale salad? Like, this isn't making any sense.
Because mommy wine culture has normalized it and glamorized it. But I feel like the first step, if you believe you may be somewhere in that big spectrum of gray area drinking, is to educate yourself on what alcohol actually is and what it's actually doing to you, mind, body, and spirit. And for me, the big clue that got me curious about living alcohol free or just alcohol in general was that shame element you're talking about. It wasn't these rock bottoms I was having. I wasn't losing anything. I was still performing. Was I the mom I wanted to be doing that shit every night? No. Was I the leader or the therapist I could be? No. Was I the wife? No. But there was nothing really falling apart. But it was when I woke up in the morning, the shame spiral that I felt and the anxiety or the such low depression that I felt like the question isn't, am I an alcoholic? It's, why do I keep doing this to myself?
Right. Is it good enough? Like, not, there's, we have to start asking ourselves. It wasn't until I listened to my inner knowing and stopped listening and looking outside of myself, which I had done most of my life. And my inner knowing was pleading with me, please just explore your relationship with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And when I joined Sober Sis, I didn't want to break up with alcohol. I'll be honest with you. I was like, oh, I just need to get a few tools under the tool belt to go back to being a so-called normal drinker, whatever that means, and drink responsibly. Nobody even knows what that means. And so I got into this and I thought, oh my gosh, all of this stigma and shame that you're talking about, shame off of us, because we have been duped. We have been sold this intoxicating lie that this is how we handle stress and motherhood and challenges, and we don't know that it is compounding our parenting challenges. It's adding to our depression and our anxiety. It's destroying our mental health. Physically, it's linked to 7 types of cancers, but we're not told this. We don't talk about this. And so I was like, that's why that invitation on my heart wouldn't leave me alone. It was like, we need a book that is talking about gray area drinking, because so many of us are trapped in this space, and it is not your fault. But it is your responsibility to get curious, lift up the hood on that one-way drinking highway, and see, what is it providing for you? Is it really true, all the beliefs that you have around it? Is it really relaxing you, or is it waking you up at 3 a.m.? Is it really rewarding you when you don't want to play with your kids because you're too tired? And are you really, can you have fun without it? Who are you without it? And alcohol really disconnected me from my mind, body, and spirit. And only when it was out of my system for more than 2 weeks, I could never quit for more than 2 weeks. And I thought that was strange too. Well, then I learned it takes 2 weeks for alcohol to leave your body. So as soon as it was just about out of my body, my brain was like, where's my dopamine? I needed that hit.
Yep.
And so I would go right back, because I wasn't doing the work. I was doing sheer willpower. And that's why dry January, most people don't make it past 2 weeks in dry January. That's why. Because if you don't get into a community and learn and get the programs and the tools and get connection with other women to let you know that you're not alone, and you look into, what do I really need? It's like what you said. I need rest. I need a break. And we just don't talk about that as women. We see on, social media, everybody highly successful and winning and doing all these things. And I love the women that come on and say, I got to take a break. I got to check out of here for a while. I got to be with my kids and my family. I'm not serving myself. That's what we need more role models of. And I have a part in the book about, there's 7 different types of rest. And it's from Dr. Dalton Smith's book, Sacred Rest, which is an excellent book. But there are 7 types of rest. Who knew, right?
I didn't. That was new information to me.
Yeah, we need that. We need rest and community and support. We need to be able to ask for help and connection, and not alcohol. But TV, movies, television, everywhere
Shopping.
you look. Shopping.
Eating,
it's all
drinking, gambling.
It's all a way of keeping us small, quiet, and checked out.
Well, and because I love the brain science, this information really helped me reprogram some of my core beliefs around alcohol. Was the reason why you wake up with anxiety. And if you've never heard that term before, it's hangover anxiety. You wake up anxious, or you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing really fast, or you just wake up really low, is because when you drink alcohol, your brain dumps all of this artificial dopamine, like 4 times the amount of what you would get from something that was more natural, like going on a walk. And because our brain is always searching for homeostasis, to go back to its natural state, it stops giving you dopamine. And so you wake up the next day and you're actually in a dopamine depletion.
Yep.
And if you can imagine someone like me who's dopamine depleting herself night after night for years,
Yep.
it's not a big coinky dink why I found myself in a terrible mental health state. But going back to what you were saying, I blamed myself. What's wrong with me? I must be a bad person. And then the more I started learning about the brain science and just what alcohol is, I was like, no, this is an addictive substance that our brains, we're teaching our brains that it's important for us to rest, but it's doing the exact opposite. It's messing with our sleep rhythms. It's stealing our dopamine. It's having us do things that we're not proud of. And it's costing us more than it's giving us, even though the mommy wine culture is still acting like this is the coolest shit this side of the Mississippi. But let me ask you this, because you and I are both passionate about like conditioning and how we're programmed as women to be people pleasers and perfectionists. I loved the rest conversation you had in your book. From where you're sitting, I heard social media. Why is it so hard for women like me and you and probably most of the audience? Why is it so hard for us to rest? And what is real rest for you now that you're alcohol free?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it's one that I'm going to be honest with you, I go back and forth with often because tell you there's no bad parts of ourselves. And so the chronic achiever, the perfectionist, and the people pleaser are coping skills that have helped me thrive and survive through many situations in my life. Mm-hmm. And so it's a trauma response to some things that have happened to me, which those stories are in the book. But when they pop up, I view them as like little army people. And I say, oh, there you are, the chronic achiever, the perfectionist, the people pleaser. Thank you so much for your service. Mm-hmm. Thank you, because you have helped me so much in my life. But now I know that I am good enough. I am more than enough. And that these 3 things I'm going to do today are enough. And it is a hard thing. It's a rewiring like I had to do with the alcohol. I had to rewire my brain and saying when my brain would go into a bar and be like, oh my God, look at that margarita. It looks really good. Well, that's just rocket fuel with a little umbrella and the glass. Like I had to retrain my brain. Mm-hmm. Same thing. When these little army people show up, and they do all the time, I have to catch them, thank them, honor them, acknowledge them, and then let them go. It's like young Pablo says, is the deeper the pain, the more that these coping skills and mechanisms are going to pop up, and the more repetitive we have to be with releasing them and letting them go and choosing differently. Mm-hmm. And that it's normal. It's normal. Instead of beating ourselves up and saying, now I actually look at the perfectionist stuff and say, I am perfect, whole, and complete. Mm-hmm. And that is a superpower of mine because I care deeply. I'm going to get it done. But I'm also, now that alcohol is out of the way, going to take a temperature gauge with my energetic, emotional bandwidth. And if I know that I am hitting a wall, I know now the healthy way of dealing with that wall is to go meditate, to go for a walk. It might just to be looking out a window on my pillow and just letting that bright light come in and refuel me and just sit there with it and honor that I am energetically tapped out and that is okay. And so now I'm always taking this energetic gauge with myself and saying, how can I honor my mind, body, and spirit and show up? And then I'm able to show up better for my family and for my work and for my creativity. I know that when I am hitting these blocks, it's because I'm doing too much. And I have to slow down, and I have to stop, and I have to take a break. And then it comes back. But I couldn't feel that when I was drinking. The alcohol was numbing all of that. I'm an empath, and I'm highly sensitive, and I would take on people's energies, and I would numb it out and soften those sharp edges with alcohol. But what I didn't realize was I was also numbing the good. So when we numb the bad, we also numb the good. And so I was just walking through life kind of fogged out, slightly checked out, kind of numb all the time. And I didn't even realize it until I got it out of my body. And I will be honest with you, it was really around 100 days alcohol free that things started really shifting in my brain. So why I think it's great we do these dry Januaries and we have sober Septembers and all the little challenges. That is our instant gratification culture, which is like, oh, I want to lose weight in 20 days, or I want to, whatever it is, whatever the challenge is. And I'm grateful for those challenges because I wouldn't be where I am without it. But I also want to be very real, to give yourself more time, more grace, more space, because it took years to get to where you are in that gray area drinking. You were a take it or leave it drinker at one point. And no matter who you are, it doesn't matter what everybody else says to you. It matters, what is it providing for your life? Is it good enough?
Yes, I love that. And I feel like you do need to give yourself a lot of time to deprogram and reprogram all that we've learned about rest and drinking and all these things. And my journey has certainly been an unperfected path to recovery, because even though I started my Sober Curious journey 2 years ago, right now is my longest stint. I'm day 117. Now I have drank a couple of times in those 117, but I'm keeping going. And what I want to say about that, my friends, is it's been 2 years of reading books, reprogramming my subconscious beliefs, doing the inner healing, journaling, working through it in real time, replacing habits, right? Atomic Habits was a good book that helped me. Like that 5 o'clock wine is now a 5 o'clock walk, or a 5 o'clock bath with salts, or yoga nidra. Those are real ways to rest or rejuvenate. And it's almost like slowly but surely over time, I really was changing from the inside out. It wasn't just the first time I did dry January, I was cured, or the second time I did dry July, or even my first 90 day. It's been pouring into this curiosity and doing it in a really messy, unpredictable way that I think it's all adding up. And the way I see alcohol and how it makes me feel is changing and it's making it easier for me to make healthier choices for myself. And in doing so, I have tapped into my intuition and my spirituality like never before. What I'm able to accomplish is blowing my freaking mind, and not from a place of overachieving. Because, honey, I don't work that hard. Okay, I got my morning ritual, my daytime ritual, my evening ritual. I'm popping off. I'm resting half the damn day. But what I'm able to produce is real and authentic and in the flow, which you and I were talking about. And so when I'm looking at this slow journey of like changing, but I'm also looking at what I'm gaining, also getting to know myself and the real feelings that I was trapping by drinking. Because I now know my overachieving was a trauma response.
Yeah, mine too.
And the drinking was a way to manage it all.
Yep. Yes, and I love how you have been vulnerable and open and honest that you have been drinking sometimes through this journey. I want to say, I talk about it in my book with Holly Whitaker, who wrote Quit Like a Woman. We don't just
That's a game-changing book right there.
Oh,
game changer.
Game changer. We don't just get up and run a marathon. And if you fall at mile 17, do you just go back to start? No, you get up, you brush off your knee, and you run to the finish line. And so if you don't give up and you just keep staying curious and have loads of self-compassion for yourself, that's so key on this journey. Loads and loads of self-compassion. And just know that these little side steps where you may have a drink, if you get curious about it, like you said in your journal, and say, did that really give me the relaxation that I thought it would? Or was it a 20-minute buzz that then you are chasing for the rest of the night? And
Ding,
you're never
ding, ding, ding.
And what an absolute time suck for women who are always saying, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. There's not enough time in the day. I want to tell you, when you quit drinking, the amount of energy that you're going to have and the amount of time you're going to get back, I would have never been able to write a book. I'm taking a painting class now. All these things that I reconnected with my mind, body, and spirit never, alcohol corroded that connection. It just corroded it. And I couldn't even see it at the time. And so, just stay on the path. Don't give up. Even if you're still having some sidesteps, get in your journal. Ask yourself, why did I do that last night? Was it deprivation? Did I have a deprivation mindset? Did it really give me what I thought I was missing? Was it fun? Or can I be fun without it? Really get into what these intoxicating lies are that you're believing about it, and question, is it true? And I promise you at some point it will click. And that's okay. Everybody's journey is different. We get into this whole comparison journey. You will always find somebody who can drink more than you or drink less than you, or his journey is perfect and yours isn't. It doesn't matter. It's your journey. It's your journey alone. And it's a beautiful journey, because for you, you have to figure it out. Even what I'm saying is not good. Little pieces may click, but it's your journey. And that's why I have all my other sober sisters' stories in my book, because not everybody's going to resonate with my story. We need all these beautiful stories to say, oh, that's me. I talked to women this past weekend at the Sober Sis retreat who wouldn't drink for a whole month, but then would have a binge weekend where they went off the rails. Mm-hmm. So 30 days of not drinking, and then one that would make up for 30. Everybody's drinking looks different. We can't compare ourselves to other people. It's just one of the other traps and lies in our culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially on social media.
Oh, exactly. So you talk also about the unbecoming process that you went through, and it's clear that you're passionate about supporting women on their journey in that regard. Yeah. What have you learned about yourself in becoming alcohol free, or what's been, and you alluded a little bit to it, but what's become possible now that you are living free from this time suck, energy and time suck, right? I love that you touched on the time thing, because it's so true. Like, if you add up the time that you're spending thinking about drinking, shopping the drinking, actually doing the drinking, making bad decisions when you're drinking, and then the hangover, and then the shame, and then doing it again, like, that's a part-time job, friends.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I don't have extra energy to just be bleeding out for no good reason around here. So that was a huge part of my journey, was like, I want to be healthy, and I want to have enough time, energy, and sanity, what I call the precious jewels, for the things that matter most to me. And removing alcohol is a big part of it, because the time adds up and the energy adds up. But what's been possible for you now that you've been living alcohol free for, you said 3.5 years now, is that right?
Yeah, 3.5 years. And I want to say that, thank you. The decision fatigue around moderating, because a lot of us want to go back and moderate. Mm-hmm. And I even have a chapter in the book where I was alcohol free for 15 months and then drank. Mm-hmm. The decision fatigue around that mental chatter of how much I can drink, when I can drink, and all the things you just said, take up so much of our emotional bandwidth in our heads. It's exhausting. But drinking amnesia when you quit is a real thing. And that's why community is so important, to say, nope, let's stay in this, because we have to remind ourselves that, again, it was not providing. It's like labor. It's like having a child, right? Like, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I'll do it again. And then you're like, oh my God.
That was actually traumatizing. Why are we signing up for this again?
Yeah, we tend to like, I don't know, just forget about those things. So, but what it has given me is just so much beauty and magic in the day that I was not tuned into before. So much of this is, once you remove the alcohol and alcohol becomes no longer an issue, it's working on that heart work, the inner work of the past and the reasons kind of that may have led you to drink. It could be a divorce. It could be a loss of a loved one. It could be a trauma response. Or it could just be out of sheer habit, just, of the culture that we live in. But it's looking at those things and really reconnecting with your inner knowing and finding joy again in the day. So I have a part of it's called Find Your Fun Self again in the book. And finding the beauty in the day is a way of, we have to, for happiness and joy to come into our lives, we have to create it, we have to find it. And so when I go on my walks, which my walks are movement and is medicine, it's a way of me releasing the shoulds, the shit, all the past and the energy that no longer serves me. And then I find one thing on that walk. It could be a rock that's in the shape of a heart. It could be, because I collect those, or it could be a sunset, a flower, a leaf, a tree, whatever it is that speaks to your heart. And really bringing that joy back in, that creativity back in, that attitude for gratitude. It's allowed me to then feel like I am being held and loved on this journey. And when you're in that mental space, I'm able to, I had a fear of public speaking. And I worked with Amanda Kuda, who I know is a friend of yours. And we had to go back to that little girl within, which I do often in this journey, as I go back to her when I get triggered or when I feel stuck. And that's why life coaches like yourself are so critical on this journey, because there are things that are going to pop up. And you have to work sometimes with a therapist, because you're unbecoming and you're peeling back all these layers of conditioning from our culture that we've been talking about. And sometimes it's like a Jumanji game. You get stuck and you're like, I want to level up, but I don't know how. And that's where you, a life coach, comes in and says, let's look at this from a different angle. Let's explore why you're feeling stuck. And so I had to do a lot of that work, but then what it opened up for me was the ability to step outside of my comfort zone. And becoming alcohol free teaches you to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And because you're in social situations where everyone's drinking and you're not, and you're in the minority, right? You're the lone wolf out there in an alcohol obsessed society. And so when we step outside of our comfort zone, it's scary. It's uncertain. You kind of feel like the lone one, like, oh, can I do this? The imposter syndrome starts coming in. Who are you to write a book? You're not a writer. You didn't go to school for that. All the fear and all the not enoughness comes flying back in. And that is where I would do breath work or work with my life coach or sit in meditation and do an I am meditation of not I'm a mother, not I'm a pharmaceutical rep, or I'm a wife. No, I am love. I am generous. I am empathic. I am enough. And really start rebuilding yourself from the inside out and taking those small baby steps towards writing that book, towards public speaking. And yeah, they're scary and frightening. But every time you do it, you're like, I can do this. I am enough. And it's just another intoxicating lie that we believe about our self-worth from our culture, who wants to keep you small and quiet and checked out. And it's utter bullshit. And I'm here to tell you that when you remove alcohol, you're going to start to feel this sense of confidence and this sense of worthiness blossom inside of you. And if you're not feeling it, get with a life coach, get with a family member who can tell you who you are, that you are creative and funny and witty and all the things that you are, and meditate on that, because you are those things. But we have just been told that we are not enough in so many different ways, and it's all BS.
Yeah, and alcohol just dims and dims and dims our light, and we disconnect from our bodies, which we've already been taught to disconnect from. So we lose our connection to what we want, what we desire, what our intuition is calling for, even how we feel about things. Like for me, taking off that lubricant, I now know, like you were saying, like I'm more sensitive to energies than I've ever known. My intuition is stronger than I ever wanted to face.
Yeah.
I have real desires about things that I was playing small on for fear of failure. I have boundaries I need to set because there's things I was doing that I didn't want to freaking be doing anymore. But in not only removing the alcohol, but engaging in these practices that she's sharing, you guys, these are so important on your self-development journey. Sitting with yourself in silence, in meditation, out in nature, and asking these soul-led questions. You're gonna hear the whispers, and it might take time. Like when I first started, I was disconnected from my body. My body was like, fuck you. You've just been dumping toxins down me and shaming me when you look in the mirror for the last 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not telling you my truth. And it took consistency in the practice for me to heal and build that trust and for my channels to open up. But now it's like, if I want to know some direction in my life, or I need some clarity, or I just want to check in, I know the answer isn't outside of myself, it's within. I just have to sit on my meditation pillow and allow it to come. And if it doesn't come today, I trust that it will come soon. And when it does, I honor the shit out of it. And that is when I think about, as a collective of women, of mothers, when we stop hiding under things like alcohol, when we heal and we get to our authentic essence,
Yes.
what we could accomplish collectively is like solving world problems level shit.
Yes. 100%.
We need our authentic essence now more than ever. We don't need to be numbed out playing small, shaming ourselves.
Yes.
We need to reconnect to what matters most and to bring that light into the world, and it could change the world.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, it's like when you remove those substances or whatever your thing is, eating, shopping, whatever it is, you feel into your body that, hell yes, I want this, or hell no, I need to put up a boundary. And you start really tuning into what serves you and what feeds your energy and what puts you in flow. And life starts happening for you and not at you anymore. Mm-hmm. And that is the true emotional freedom that we're all seeking. Mm-hmm. We're all seeking it. Mm-hmm. It's there, like you said, it's all waiting for you inside of you. The answers are within. You have to slow down to hear it. You have to get quiet. Mm-hmm. And that little girl within you is going to lead you back home to integrity, the truth, and the essence of who you are. She's waiting for you to rescue her.
Mm-hmm. That is so powerful. That is such a beautiful place to kind of end. I do want to ask one more question though. So for the person listening who's curious, am I a gray area drinker? Mm-hmm. What are some things, some warning signs? I shared the shame that I was feeling about my drinking was a warning sign that I was a gray area drinker. What are some signs to look out for that we may be on the spectrum?
If you're questioning your relationship with alcohol, you're probably a gray area drinker. If you don't have really any external consequences and it's this internal struggle of questioning and isolating and wondering if you have a problem, you really should start to explore it, because you probably are somewhere on that spectrum. And it's not a bad thing. It's just alcohol is doing its job, which is it's a highly addictive drug. And so in my book, I have a whole chapter on questions that you can ask yourself, you know, and some of them is like, over time, I find myself drinking more. Like it may have started with 1 glass and now it's 2. Mm-hmm. We could even be at 3. And let's be honest, who's measuring their glasses of wine at night? Are you really measuring if it's 4 or 5 glasses? No. And
a bottle of wine is 3 glasses from where I come from. Okay, we do some hefty pours from where I come from.
Right.
Yeah. No one's actually busting out the 5-ounce thingy.
Yeah, and it just
measuring cup. That's what I'm looking for. The 5-ounce measuring cup. That's not happening.
And I want to say also, if you're one of these people that is taking a lot of breaks, so a lot of gray area drinkers will take a lot of breaks. They'll be able to quit for 2 weeks, a month, or whatever, but we always go back to our drinking. And I can tell you, when I would take those breaks, sometimes it would come back with vengeance. It would be almost a little bit worse when I came back. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing that kind of pattern too, then you are a gray area drinker. Again, if you are thinking about it, take it or leave it drinkers are not questioning the relationship with alcohol. They really could care less about alcohol, you know? Mm-hmm. And if you're at a place where you're day drinking and you're getting the shakes when you're not drinking, and you're really physically and psychologically dependent on this, then you need to speak with your doctor. You may need a medical detox. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm not a physician, but I do have a lot of questions in the book that you can ask yourself to just see if they resonate with where you might be on that spectrum.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And one of the questions that I love to ask myself just in general is, this thing that I'm doing, whether it's drinking or raging or skipping workouts or whatever, is it getting me closer to who I want to be and how I want to feel? Or is it pulling me further away? Because the last podcast episode I released is about journaling. And in my journaling practice, I revisit who do I want to be and how do I want to feel and what action am I taking today to move myself towards that? Because we have to take action to help ourselves every day if we want to feel good. And so with drinking, is this getting me closer to the person I want to be when I'm imagining my best self, living my best life, being someone I'm ultimately proud of at the end of this life? Is alcohol getting me closer to that, or is it actually pulling me away? And once I had the courage to answer that stuff honestly, it was like, fuck. It's definitely not helping. Yeah, I would have bursts of creativity here and there, but that was way drowned out by the blocking off of creativity, the loss of production, the shaming myself. Another question is, do I do things when I'm drinking that don't make me proud of myself? Like
The
fighting with
Amazon
my
port comes up
partner or
quickly.
whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
I mean, I would have stuff show up to the house from Shark Tank, and I'm like, oh my God. Really?
Shark Tank. Okay, I talk about Amazon Prime boxes showing up and you have no idea, but Shark Tank, that takes the cake. If we're ordering some shit off Shark Tank, I don't even know how we get that. But if we're doing that, you just might want to get a little serious. Or like any crazy new like device or concoction or outfit. Yeah, it's like the purchases indicate the
Yeah, and I
mind frame
actually
that we are
had
in. I
I
love that
had
you're so honest
a
about that.
woman ask me this past weekend at the retreat, what do you tell everybody when they ask you? I don't know what to say when
Oh.
I tell people that I've quit drinking. And I said, you know what you tell them? I like myself better. I love my life so much more without alcohol. And I guess what? No one's going to question that, but they might be curious and say, tell me more. What do you like? And the list is endless.
That is beautiful. That is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And also, like, I'm doing it for my mental health, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for the
You
wellness part
cannot
of it.
expect to have amazing mental health when you're robbing yourself of dopamine. Like, it's just, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety, it's
Yep.
kind of like if you're focused on your gut health, you got to look at alcohol. We can't just skip past that conversation and green juice the living shit out of things. Okay? Like, I know we want to, but I see how many people are like passionate about gut health and things like that, which are very important. But it's like, why is it so scary to say I'm interested in my health, so I'm looking at my alcohol consumption? I'm interested in my mental health, so I'm looking at my relationship with alcohol. No different than I'm interested in my health, so I'm looking at how gluten affects my body.
Right.
Guys,
Right.
it's the same. It's a thing you're putting into your body that has a biochemical response. You should feel no more shame around looking at questioning alcohol as you are gluten or dairy or whatever thing that you're looking at. It's all valid.
So true. It's so true. And your kale salad or your green juice is not going to undo a bottle of wine or your rewarding glass of wine. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not.
No.
It's
And
no.
let's talk about skincare really quick because your skin looks effing fabulous. I don't want to see about your ointments and your treatments. I don't
And
like quit drinking and you're going to have hydrated, cleared up skin. I'm
so
just saying.
you glow. Your eyes open, you glow. I worked in dermatology, pharmaceutical sales for many years, so I know my skincare very, very well. And I can tell you, I've suffered with eczema most of my life, in particular on my hands, and I will put them up there. It's all gone. It's an inflammatory response. It's another inflammatory, like sugar, like gluten, whatever it is that you're looking at. It's another inflammatory product that you're putting into your body. I just met one of my sober sisters, like I said, this past weekend, and she had colitis. It's all gone since she quit drinking. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen to everybody. I'm not saying
No.
everybody's eczema is going to clear up and everybody's colitis is going to disappear. But I can tell you, I have talked to enough people that's blood pressure medicine was either decreased or stopped. There's so many health benefits to taking a look at this. So get curious and just try it for a little while and see what happens.
Yeah, and the sleep.
Oh, the
I
sleep.
mean, right now I have a sick family, so it's not happening right now. But in general, once you truly detox and you start retraining your brain and body to sleep, and you're like working out more, moving more because you're not hungover, the sleep alone for me was a big game changer, and especially for mental health. Like if I don't sleep 3 nights in a row, I take a real fast dive mental health wise. And so if I want to feel good mental health wise, I need sleep. If I need good sleep, I have to look at what's helping me or hurting me. So this is all, guys, just some things to be looking at, some things to be curious about. No shame.
No
We are
shame.
not here to shame you. There is nothing wrong with you. But let's be discerning about what we put into our brains and bodies, and is it really serving us or is it deteriorating us? Because you are deserving of feeling good and of being the kind of person that you're proud of. So, Meg, thank you so much for this conversation. Tell us a little bit more about where we can find you and connect with you and get the book and all of that stuff.
Well, thank you, Brooke, so much for having me. So I primarily am on Instagram, which is attached to my Facebook. But if you really want to engage with me, I'm on Instagram primarily, which is Intoxicating Lies book, all one word, Intoxicating Lies book. My book is sold anywhere books are sold, so you can find me anywhere. I'm also available via Kindle. And my website is intoxicatinglies.com. And I'm hoping to come out with a writing community. It's something that I'm in the works with right now, where I want to have a space for women to come and rest and ground and get more curious through journal prompts. And it's okay if you're not a writer, you can just listen in. But if you do have a love for journaling and writing, we're going to be exploring how to reconnect with that inner knowing, that intuition that you talked about that grows in this journey. You don't have to be sober to be a member as well, but it's not going to be about becoming alcohol free. It's going to be about really reconnecting with that little girl within.
That's so beautiful, and with each other. I
Yes.
feel like we need safe places we can go to authentically rest and connect. Like that is the call. That is what so many of the women I work with are just desperate for. So that's beautiful. So you guys give her a follow on Instagram so you can be the first to know about this writing community. And Meg, thank you so much for just being a leader in this space and showing us what's possible. You guys go out and get this one. Intoxicating Lies, okay? All right, Meg, thank you so much. And you guys, we will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you so much for listening to the Unperfected Pod. I hope this episode helped you feel a little less alone and a little more inspired to be you. If you like what we're doing here, I would so appreciate that you subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you do, share the episode on Instagram and tag me at Brooke Jean Unperfected to enter to win a 1-to-1 laser coaching session. Also, feel free to join me in my private Facebook community, Mommy's Mental Health Matters, where we continue the conversation. Thanks again for being here, and see you in next week's episode.